All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling a topic I think a lot of us can relate to, anxiety. And we're not just skimming the surface here.
Yeah, we're going deep.
Exactly. In our last chat, you mentioned this recurring dream, the one where you're about to give a big presentation, but you're totally unprepared.
Oh, yeah. I can never seem to find my notes.
Exactly. That dream, my friend, is a goldmine. It's like a direct line to understanding how anxiety operates in our lives. And it's something we hear about a lot from listeners, too.
It's so common, and it makes sense when you think about it. Our anxieties often hook onto these universal fears, like the fear of judgment, of not measuring up.
Which is totally understandable, right? It's like we're hardwired to care what others think. But here's where things get really interesting. Remember that alarm system idea we talked about? How anxiety is supposed to be this helpful warning system?
Like a smoke detector telling you when there's danger.
Exactly. But sometimes that alarm system, it's like a faulty smoke detector going off for no reason, burning toast. And that presentation dream, that's your smoke detector going haywire about a perceived threat, not an actual one.
And to make it worse, most of the time, we react in a way that actually strengthens the anxiety.
We hit the snooze button instead of actually putting out the fire.
Exactly. We avoid. It gives us temporary relief, no more blaring alarm. But the problem is that avoidance only makes the fear stronger in the long run.
You mentioned you've been turning down presentation opportunities at work because of this anxiety. Yeah, I mean, it's just easier than dealing with the nerves.
I hear you. But each time you avoid, you're basically telling your brain, see, I told you it was dangerous.
So how do we rewire that thinking? You sent over some really insightful resources, and there were a couple of approaches that really stood out, CBT and exposure therapy. Are those related? Because they seem kind of similar, like two sides of the same coin.
You're spot on. They work beautifully together. Think of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, as a way to rewire those faulty circuits in your brain. It helps you identify and challenge those negative thought patterns that fuel your anxiety.
So instead of, I'm going to totally bomb this presentation and everyone will think I'm incompetent, it's more like,
More like, okay, presentations make me a bit nervous, that's normal, but I've got this, I know my stuff, and even if I stumble, it's not the end of the world. You're learning to swap out those automatic negative thoughts with more balanced ones.
I like that.
And that's where exposure therapy comes in. Remember that spider phobia you mentioned?
Oh, don't remind me. Those eight-legged nightmares, they get me every time.
Right. So with exposure therapy, we wouldn't throw you into a room full of spiders on day one.
Thank goodness for that.
Instead, we'd start slowly. Maybe look at pictures of spiders, then watch videos. Gradually work our way up to being in the same room as one.
So it's like dipping your toes in the shallow end of the pool before diving into the deep end.
Precisely. You're slowly building up your tolerance, showing your brain, see, it's not as scary as you thought. And this applies to all sorts of anxieties, from social situations to public speaking.
So it's about facing your fears, but in a way that feels safe and controlled. This is great. Okay, so we've got CBT to rewire those thought patterns, exposure therapy to gradually confront those fears. What about in those moments, though, when anxiety hits you like a freight train? Like, what can people do right now to find some relief?
Those moments are rough. That's where relaxation techniques come in. Simple things, really. Deep breathing exercises, meditation, even just stepping away from the situation and taking a walk.
Like hitting the pause button on that anxiety spiral.
Exactly. It's not a permanent fix, but it can offer that much-needed break, help you regain a sense of control.
So it's like building a toolkit for dealing with your anxiety. We've got our long-term solutions, CBT and exposure therapy, and then those trusty tools for in-the-moment relief like relaxation techniques, and of course there's medication.
Right, which can be really helpful for some people, especially when combined with therapy.
Totally. It's about finding what works for you. But the key takeaway here is this: they're not alone, and chronic anxiety is treatable. There's hope.
Absolutely.
All right, before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to that presentation dream we talked about.
Yeah.
Now that we've dug a little deeper into how anxiety works, those thought patterns, the avoidance cycle, how do you think you'd approach giving a presentation now? How about those of you listening? Would you do anything differently? Something to mull over as we all navigate this wild ride we call life. Until next time.